Good morning and welcome back. You're watching World News and I'm your host, Claudia Czerwińska. In a breakthrough statement on his social media platform Truth Social, U.S. President Donald Trump said he thinks Ukraine is in a position to fight and win all of Ukraine back. This follows meetings with European allies and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy on the sidelines of the United Nations General Assembly. Our correspondent Oz Kataji is in Kyiv. Good morning, Oz. So what are the Ukrainian reactions to these words? Tell us more.
Good morning, Claudia. Well, look, we have a remarkable statement by US President Donald Trump, marking a massive shift in rhetoric and tone about the conflict here in Ukraine, saying that Ukraine can win all of its territory back. It's important to note the last time Donald Trump and President Zelenskyy, not the last time, the time before, that they were in the Oval Office, President Trump told Zelenskyy that Ukraine held no cards. So clearly the result of this massive effort of diplomacy from European leaders, from Kyiv, towards President Trump and his administration to try to get them on side with the way Ukraine views the conflict. So a really big change in rhetoric there from Donald Trump. Let's take a listen to what President Zelenskyy said on the fringes of the United Nations in response to Donald Trump's statement.
Trump is a game changer by himself if he will be sure in Ukraine, and I think that he is more close now to this situation, and that's why and between us only Trump can. For today, we know some not too much players in the world who can be game changers, but he's the most closer to this. All of us, we understand that President Trump that he's ready to give Ukraine security guarantees after this war will finish.
So it's very clear that those words are being very warmly welcomed here in Kyiv. Happy reaction from President Zelenskyy to these words from Donald Trump really shows that his efforts towards diplomacy have been working. We also heard from US Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who said that Donald Trump's patience with Vladimir Putin was not infinite and that more sanctions may be on the cards in the future. Again, that'll be music to Kyiv's ears, but it's important to note that while this is a change in rhetoric from Donald Trump, policy is going to be the thing that matters most to Kyiv. Even in the statement Donald Trump made, he talked about selling weapons to NATO. So this still falls short of the kinds of support the Ukrainians would be hoping for, but still very positive news as far as Kyiv is concerned with regards to the rhetoric and tone of the way Donald Trump is now talking about the war in Ukraine, particularly around the fact that Donald Trump now apparently believes that Ukraine can capture its territory that was captured by Russia since February 2022. So important stuff here, important reaction from Kyiv, Claudia. Looking forward, the Ukrainians are going to hope that this change in tone can be matched with a change in policy. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Oz. That was Oz Kataji reporting live from Kyiv. Polish Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski said the war should end with Ukraine's borders restored, noting that President Trump now appears to view Kyiv as a winner. His comment followed Trump's post on his social media platform Truth Social, suggesting Ukraine can reclaim all its territory with Western support.
The most natural end of this war would be to restore the international border between Russia and Ukraine, because that is what is in law between Ukraine and Russia. They have actually a border treaty, and that would require no negotiation. And I hope it also reflects the fact that President Trump likes a winner, and Ukraine is hitting back at Russian refineries rather successfully. So perhaps Mr. Trump is seeing a new trend.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has called on members of the UN Security Council to help end Russia's war against Ukraine. Speaking at Tuesday's meeting, US Secretary of State Marco Rubio issued a strong warning to Russia.
Ukraine wants peace more than
anyone in the world. The front is on our land, and we mourn our people, and we try to save our cities and to save our small villages. Russia ignores its dead, blind to its own losses. But one day, it will see and it will hear, and it will happen when it sees your actions, when it hears your united call for peace.
So I strongly urge the Security Council, the member states here, and those who are not part of this as well, to do everything in their power, and including the Russian Federation, to do everything within their power, and the Ukrainian side for that matter as well, but all sides, to bring this war to an end before it becomes something that will last another 3 or 4 years, lead to more destruction, both economic and at the same time and loss of life and loss of property and loss of futures. This war needs to end. But if it does not, if there is no path to peace in the short term, then the United States and President Donald J. Trump will take the steps necessary to impose costs for continued aggression.
It is very much lamentable that the membership of the Security Council has been compelled today to spend time and be present at a meeting which was initiated by a European colleague purely to mark the latest New York stop on the tour of the well-known former actor. And here we see, squeezed in, as during the subway at rush hour, where we hear, and we will continue to hear, mere replicated statements which have nothing to do with the truth. There is no added value for the establishment of peace in Ukraine.
Polish President Karol Nawrocki took the stage at the 80th United Nations General Assembly meeting on Tuesday. In his speech, Nawrocki commented on the recent Russian incursions into NATO airspace, saying that Poland and other EU countries will not be intimidated by Russian drones and planes. Nawrocki also advocated for the creation of a special tribunal to prosecute Russian war criminals and said that what Russia sees as peace would be a total surrender of Ukraine.
Poles and the countries of Central and Eastern Europe will not be intimidated by Russian drones. However, that is not the point. The point is how long we will continue to allow such violations of our national and international community. That is why, ladies and gentlemen, we in Poland are allocating significant funds to the development of our defence capabilities, and that is why we are building not only the resilience of our country, but also of our entire part of Europe. Because the Baltic states, our friends, such as the Estonians as well as Romania, have also fallen victim to similar provocations by Russia. Russia's current actions do not indicate a willingness to pursue genuine peace. Declarations of dialogue, as we know, are accompanied by military offensives and further attacks, whose victims are civilians, including children. Whenever Moscow speaks of peace, what it actually means is a surrender of those it considers its enemies. Russia must end the war and take full responsibility for it. Holding Russia accountable should be our common duty. We must build an international system of accountability that does not hesitate to call evil by its name, regardless of the flag it bears on its shoulder. We must make it clear there are limits, there are human rights, there is international law, and anyone who violates them should face severe consequences.
Russian authorities systematically submit Ukrainian civilians in occupied territories to torture, says the Office of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights. Since 2023, UN investigators spoke to 216 Ukrainian civilians, 92% of whom gave consistent accounts of torture or ill treatment in Russian captivity. According to the UN report, the questioned victims spoke of severe beatings, electric shock, and stimulated executions. Many of the released civilians also said that they and their families have been threatened with death and violence. According to the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk, the Russian army arbitrarily detains people and holds them for days, months, or even years. Turk added that this is crucial that the rights of detained civilians be a priority in any future peace talks. Even though Russia was warned at the UN Security Council by the Polish foreign minister not to continue its provocations, Monday brought about another incident where Moscow's involvement is heavily suspected. Multiple drones have crossed into Danish and Norwegian airspaces, leading to the two busiest airports in Scandinavia being shut down. The Danish Prime Minister called the violation the most serious attack on critical infrastructure in Denmark yet. Anastasia Yanchenko has more in her latest report.
Authorities in several countries vowed strong reactions after suspicious drones flew over two of Scandinavia's busiest airports in Copenhagen and Oslo. The airports were closed for hours, stranding tens of thousands of passengers. Regional authorities in both countries have launched an investigation, but it's still unclear how many drones were involved or where they came from.
Based on the drone's way of operating and the amount of time they spent over the target, we have concluded that there is probably what we call a capable actor behind the use of these drones.
The Danish Prime Minister dubbed the situation the most serious attack on critical infrastructure in Denmark's history.
It's clear the authorities are taking this very seriously, and I do not think that anyone can see the events that took place a few hours ago in Copenhagen independently of everything else happening in Europe. In any case, I cannot reject in any way that it could be Russia.
Norway points to the scale of the problem.
Last year, we detected up to 1,500 drones near our airports.
The problem is not limited to unmanned aircraft. 3 Russian jets recently violated Estonian airspace, prompting strong reactions from European leaders, including Poland's Prime Minister Donald Tusk.
We will not hesitate to shoot down any flying object that violates our territory and flies over Poland. There is no room for discussion on this matter.
Such incidents raise concerns about the security of Europe's strategic infrastructure, including that of Poland. Poland was the first NATO country to be threatened by Russian drones. On September 10th, Russian drones violated Polish airspace. The incursion led to the closure of several airports, including 2 in Warsaw.
We are doing our best to be prepared on this kind of situation. And in these cases, we are implementing the special procedures to manage properly the Polish airspace.
Following the incidents, the European Commission began preparations for building a drone wall, a defense system along the bloc's eastern flank to deter Russia and respond quickly to airspace violation. After Monday's incident, Denmark joined the initiative alongside Estonia, Latvia, Finland, Lithuania, Poland, Romania and Bulgaria.
For those who still doubted the need to have a drone wall in the European Union, well, here we get another example of how important it is. The latest attacks in Romania, in Poland, in Estonia, now in Denmark, 4 member states have been targeted.
Slovakia and Hungary, despite sharing a border with Ukraine, were not included. Meanwhile, the Kremlin has denied any involvement in the incidents, calling the claims unfounded accusations. Anastasia Yanchenko, TVP World.
Thousands of Slovakians took to the streets of Bratislava on Tuesday to protest against Prime Minister Robert Fico. Demonstrators accused Fico of being a Trojan horse for Russia after he broke ranks with EU allies and set conditions for agreeing to further sanctions on Russia.
Life was better here. After the Velvet Revolution in 1989, we were happy that something happened. We are a generation that was still communist, so we were happy that it changed. And now we're returning to it, and we are afraid that Russia will return too.
I'd quite like to have my own company in time where I will produce something. And the beginnings will be very difficult with this economy, and all these taxes will also cancel the support of small entrepreneurs. The whole thing is that people have had enough, and that is why they're going to the squares. That is why entrepreneurs, trade unionists, firefighters, police officers, local governments are turning against the government, because Robert Fico has already gone too far.
And so this would be all the latest news for now. Thank you very much for joining me. I'm Klaudia Czerwińska, and I hope to see you back here on TVP World for more news and features in just a moment.